Hey everyone, David C. Andersen here, coming at you from the Knife Center, and welcome to Knife AQ episode 114, the knife series where I answer all your questions, whether they're sharp or dull. And this week, we're talking about some of my favorite steels and some of your favorite steels, hopefully, and what are some of the best machetes that money can buy. Let's check them out. All right, if you're new to this series, what we do is we comb through the comments section below this videos and below these videos and pull out some interesting questions. And I try to give you a useful answer. And Thomas behind the camera over there gets sarcastic and quippy on occasion.
With better pronunciation.
On occasion, not always. Actually, he's usually pretty good. It's easier to
Well, I can just put whatever I say in post.
This is true. I was going to say it's easier for you to not mispronounce a word when there is a lower frequency of uttered words. But anyway.
And monosyllabic.
I see what you did there. Well, anyway, so if you have a question and you would like it answered, to get a chance of that happening, drop it in the comments section below. Thanks very much. Shall we get into it?
I suppose.
Van Bogert Wesley asks our first question today. David, I'm wondering why you say you like Sandvik 14C28N steel so much. Because there's a lot of videos here on YouTube where you say you like it a lot. Sure. I've mentioned some of my favorite steels before, but it's a good thing to talk about, and hopefully I'll be talking about it this way a little bit more broadly than I may have in the past. The steels that I tend to gravitate towards are ones that aren't necessarily too punishing to maintain. And what I mean by that is there's some fantastic steels out there. I've got some of these high-end super steels as well. But even the best stuff is eventually going to need to be sharpened. Worst case scenario, what if you actually chip a blade? I've got some S90V folders that I enjoy using, but there may come a day I might have to rework them. And that can be a lot of effort. Now, the balance, the trade-off on this on a grander scale is always, of course, you could are you spending the same amount of time sharpening those fewer times that you have to do it, just spending longer times in those sessions, or just simply maintaining a more simple steel? I think that made sense. I think I structured that well enough. If not, I think you take my point. The ones I like, as one who enjoys a bit of sharpening now and then, it can be real meditative. I don't mind maintaining a steel. I still want to get good performance though. I don't want to have to always be maintaining my blade. So I like the stuff that's in kind of that sweet spot. Holds an edge well, performs well, doesn't take as much to sharpen as you might think given its performance. And 14C28N is a steel that I feel really hits a mark right there. Talking about this specifically to your question, 14C28N, which we'll just hold up the leak here, classic example with that steel. Doesn't take too much effort to sharpen. It's pretty darn stainless, and it can take a really fine edge. And that's got to do with one of my favorite stainlesses, AEBL, which this steel was kind of based on that base formula. Has a really fine grain structure. The carbides aren't really big, and as such, easy to get that very fine edge on, and tougher than things with larger hard carbides. I'm looking at stuff like D2, that sort of thing. Sharpens easily. It's not going to give you super steel levels of edge retention, but I'd put it up there with stuff like VG10 and stuff like that even. Part of that is because of the toughness. That edge can hold a thinner angle more durably than stuff like, say, D2, for example. And that's where that toughness really pays dividends. And I think toughness is kind of an underrated trait that many folks don't think about. It's will it hold an edge, and that's all there is to it. But there are elements of toughness that can go into how much corrosion, or wouldn't actually affect the corrosion resistance, but can go into how long the edge feels like it lasts. If your thinner edge is tougher, less likely to roll, then another edge that might have, or another steel that might have to have a more obtuse edge, this is gonna feel sharper longer. Edge retention, right? Great stuff. 14C28N, AEBL, 13C26 are all kind of real similar. Nitro V, even 12C27. Alphabet Soup, Weeds are I'm sure up here at this point. They have those kind of similar categories, and it's why they work so well on stuff like this leek with its very thin hollow ground edge, very acute point. It has the toughness to stand up to a grind and shape like this. It's also why it works really well on stuff like this Condor Aqualure with its Scandi grind. Scandis at the edge are very narrow, very acute angles going on right there. So the toughness you get from stuff like this particular steel, fantastic. But let's broaden it out here, because I do have a few other what I call quote unquote favorite steels that to me hit a similar kind of cross section, but in different genres, shall we say. I've got, I always say like AEBL is my favorite non-particle stainless. I mentioned this, kind of recently on a video. I also have a favorite non-particle carbon steel and a favorite particle metallurgy steel these days. And being of kind of a fixed blade heritage myself, my choices are kind of heavily influenced by what works well for me on those genres. If I were coming up from a folder thing, maybe it might be slightly different, but I'm a little slow to change too, which is why, MagnaCut, it's all the rage right now. But here are my favorites. Rambling a little bit here. For my favorite particle steel, we'll start with that. I love 3V. See it here on this Benchmade Puko. Really cool stuff. I've found it holds an edge really well. It is very tough. Again, toughness is also one of those characteristics I really appreciate. And it's not the easiest steel to sharpen in the world, but given the amount of effort it does take, I've always felt like I get more performance out of it than I should, so to speak, given its level of upkeep that's required. Really good stuff, really good on outdoor fixed blades, I think, especially due to that toughness characteristic. And for my favorite carbon steel, I've always said, either 1095 or 01 on any given day. It might be one or the other. There are some similarities between the two, but I've been really digging on A2 a lot lately. You can see it here on this Hogue knife. This is an Elishewitz design, the EXF01, 7-inch blade, A2 steel, good and tough. Holds an edge well, easy enough to maintain. It's awesome stuff. But there's a lot of awesome steels out there, which is why I would like to know your guys' and gals' favorite steels. Be it if you want to break it down into categories like I tend to, or if you have your own kind of different favorite steels for different reasons, I would love to hear it, because there's no wrong answer at any of this. But that's why I like 14C28N. I think I answered that somewhere in all of that.
Somewhere.
Next question comes from Nate44. What is, quote, the best machete money can buy, end quote, question mark, asking for a friend? This is interesting to think about, because philosophically, there's a part of me that believes that the best machete money can buy is some of the least expensive ones available. Hear me out here, because there's a lot of nice stuff. You can spend a lot of money on a good machete, and I have spent good money on some good machetes, but there's always in the back of your head that little thought. The more expensive something is, the more you want to baby it. And yet I think the best machete experience is when you're not babying the tool. You're just going to town with care, obviously, using the tool properly, but when you're not afraid to use the tool without restraint, you get more out of it. So I'm going to show you the first machete I ever bought, a new version of it, not the actual one. But that is currently available from the Knife Center for $14. The Tramontina 14-inch machete was the first machete I ever bought. And this thing has seen me through so many moves, so many years of use, and it just keeps on going. Mine looks a little bit different now because I stripped the varnish off. I reprofiled the edge. At one point, I tried to, and actually we showed what I did to this on the channel at one point. Maybe we'll be able to find some footage of it when I did show it. But it had the wood handle, and I wanted to give it like a flame darkened finish, and I wound up cracking the handle in the process. So I used some blue jeans and or fiberglass resin to make a new set of handles. For $14, that's $1 an inch of carbon steel machete here that will like always get the job done. Oh my goodness. It is such a phenomenal tool. And I like the 14-inch size. It's a bit of a, underserved size. You usually see like 12 and 18-inch are super common and a few in-betweens, but the 14-inch Latin style machete like this, big fan of. So part of me really wants to say that is the best machete you could buy for the money. Well, for any amount of money, because tool's meant to do a tool's job. If you are wanting a more premiumly constructed, premium feeling machete, I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I'm not gonna find some, $700 machete. I don't even think we have a $700 machete on the site anywhere. But there's two I really like in terms of a more premium feel. The LT Wright Overland machete is fantastic. We just don't happen to have any on the shelf today as we are filming. Condor makes a lot of good stuff, but still not quite hitting the premium feel, so to speak. I'm also a big fan of the Overland, like I said, and the Tops Knives machete, simply titled machete. There's a 10-inch and what is the official spec measurement on it? 15 3/4-inch machete. Really, they are 12 and 18-inch machetes, but they've given over a little bit more handle length as opposed to giving you a little bit more blade. But you hold this up next to like the classic Ontario 12-inch machete, dimensionally, they are pretty much the same. Really cool what they've done with the handle. They give you the standard handhold for hacking and slashing, but there's way more to choke up on if you want to balance the whole blade out, get finer work done like so. Really, really cool machetes, and they're not going to break the bank. The big one's about 143, about 124 for the 12-inch or 10-inch machete right here. Comes with a really full-featured sheath as well. We'll say the Trementina does not come with a sheath, so keep that in mind. Made a Kydex sheath out of the for my Trementina, and boy is it grody looking also, but it still gets the job done. Anyway, what is your guys' favorite machetes? Let me know in the comments. Next question comes from our good old combination friend, Amalgam. This is a question for Thomas. And it's one we figured it's about time we address because you folks keep asking. Hey, what's up with your skin in the close-ups?
You want me to come over there and talk about it?
Are you allowed?
This bounces.
Yes.
Okay. It's more comfortable than my chair. What's going on?
I spent some money on it. Hey, Thomas, tell us about your hands.
My hands. So if you've been paying attention, I do the close-ups of all the B-roll shots. And past 2 months or so, my hands have been looking pretty rough. It's been a very dry winter. And I spent the past several weekends in the garage trying to keep one of my cars back on the road.
I think you mean heaps.
The heap is the pile of rust that's accumulating in the corner that I've taken off the car.
That used to be your car.
Used to be the car.
That's what you need to say.
My Pontiac identifies as a Lancia. So metal work has its own challenges, and then we went to Vegas, which was much drier, and you see all the SHOT Show footage looking pretty rough. So I understand it's been...
And your hands are looking pretty rough, too.
Yeah. Well, it was a couple long days. So I'm on now my third brand of lotion, trying to solve this problem. This is actually very similar to when I started bartending, and I got what we like to call bar rot, which is like, your skin starts splitting underneath the fingernail. It's very painful, especially when it comes time to garnish with a lemon. So I was trying that solution before. I wasn't really getting anywhere. Then I just asked the expert in my house, which is my wife. She knows more about this stuff than I do. And so
you mean lotions?
The lotions, yes.
We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, she's not a dermatologist. Probably should have gone and seen one, but I didn't.
No, we're going to ask the YouTube comment section instead.
Yes.
For suggestions.
Yes, the source of all knowledge. So it's starting to clear up, and I do want to apologize to people who've been having to suffer through looking at this, because it's, but a little perspective, as rough as it might be for you to see, it's been even rougher for me to deal with. And I'm sorry, the knives are supposed to be the focus of these videos and not my wacky hands. So Sorry about that.
There you go.
And then I cut that one the other day. So
Well, that sounds like a personal problem.
that was a personal problem.
There you go, folks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Thomas.
We'll switch back.
Okay, bye.
All right, now we come to the segment called Measured Once, Cut Twice, where we take a second slice at a previous question, or at least respond to some feedback here. This one was posted on our Beat the Icon video on the Opinel knife, which I thought was a cool video. My vid says, Benchmade tagged out is your pick for the closest. I definitely don't see that, and I do not understand your statement. Benchmade is as far away from core Opinel values as it can get, way too expensive for what it delivers. Thank you for commenting, actually, because it allows me to clarify my point a little bit that maybe I didn't get across as well in the video. Here is an Opinel number 9, and here is a Benchmade tagged out. And yes, if we're talking about value for money, you definitely don't get the same cheap and cheerful attitude of the Opinel with the tagged out. They live in a far different strata of EDC, whatever you want to call it, quite honestly. But what I meant by that is when it comes to the cutting experience that an Opinel blade offers, in that it is thin, the grind is full height and convex, but basically a full flat grind here. The just pure dedication to slicing that you get with an Opinel, you can't quite duplicate with just about any modern folder out there. There are very, very few. And I think that's where the tagged out really does make an interesting comparison. It is a wider blade, as you can see, has a full flat grind, however, and when we come to thickness, actually it looks, I seem to remember it seeming just a skosh thicker than the number 8's blade, but this number 9, man, I wish I had a set of calipers in here because thickness-wise, they're virtually identical right now. So if you're looking for a modern folding knife experience, but you want the cutting experience offered by an Opinel knife, I don't think it gets much better than the tagged out, at least with what's available right now at this point in time. Don't like the answer? That's fair.
You're allowed.
You're very much allowed because, I mean, shoot, how many Opinels can you buy for the same price as a tagged out? Like, almost 10 or so. Maybe not quite that much, somewhere around that. So I take your point there, but slicing wise, they're phenomenally comparable, I think. Now we come to our lightning round today. We've got one question from Tai Ruiki. Question, if you are just starting out collecting knives and want to trade or sell in the future, what knives and brands do collectors tend to go for? Price range between $200 to $300 for now. Honestly, I'll say it's a kind of a toss-up as to what may or may not be in demand in the future. So, it's cliche, but collect what you like. And if you're spending stuff in the $200 to $300 range, most of that stuff, not always, but will hold its value a little bit better than if you collect a bunch of small stuff. Because you're not really going to be able to trade in like 5 CRKTs into a Benchmade. That people generally don't find that appealing if they're looking for a trade. Collect what you want. Sprint runs, and to a certain extent, some limited editions may be more desirable in the future, but honestly, most knives, probably 99.5% of knives that you can buy, they don't appreciate in value. They just don't. So collect what you like because it's fun. You'll have a much better time, I think.
It's a hobby that does not pay for itself.
No. But it is an awesomely fun hobby. And now we come to our final question of the day, which is our most serious question of the day, which comes from the same person as last week's most serious question of the day. I don't think we've ever done that before. Chicken Drumstick says, hey DCA and team, thanks for your recommendation of the Natchez Bowie from Cold Steel for a big ol' honkin' knife of a knife. After purchasing my big ol' Natchez Bowie, I think I'll need a teeny little itty bitty knife to complement it. Any more recommendations? As a matter of fact, yes I do. You can see here on the table we have a Natchez Bowie, and hidden just out of sight from the camera angles is the perfect complement to that guy. Oh, here we go. It is the Boker Scalpel, and doesn't it just look like one too? It's about 37 bucks. It's D2 steel, 1.65 inch blade. I think it's the perfect complement to the Natchez buoy. What do you folks think? Eh? You can almost fit, you literally could almost fit this whole knife inside the handle of that buoy.
It's a shame it's not a hollow handle.
Yeah, maybe we could drill it out. I think it has a cable tang in there anyway, so. Hollowing it out, we shall not do.
No.
Ooh. Enterprising individuals may be able to mill a pocket out of the side, perhaps. Eh?
Might be.
Do we know any enterprising individuals?
Knifeception.
Knifeception, there we go. Well, that's all we have time for today, folks. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for your questions in the comments. And remember, if you have one yourself and you want a chance to have it answered in a future episode, drop it down below. Let me know what you thought of the answers, and if you want to get your hands on any of the knives here this week, check out the links in the description to take you to KnifeCenter.com. And of course, don't forget about our Knife Rewards program either, because if you're going to spend your money on one of these knives, you might as well earn some free money to spend on a future one. I'm David C. Andersen from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera, getting all lotioned up as we speak. See you next time.